Hello everyone, my name is Joy, and today I'm going to be talking about Hello everyone, my name is Joy, and today I'm going to be talking about resources that I use to study Japanese. Let's get into it. Okay, so first I'd like to talk about this textbook. Genki. This is the main resource that I use to study Japanese. In the beginning, at the front cover, it has a chart for learning hiragana, and on the back, it has katakana. And in the beginning, everything is written in Romaji, and as the chapters go on, they start using more hiragana and katakana and immersing you in kanji. In the back of the book, there's also a glossary that you can find in English and Japanese. There's practice exercises inside the book, and it was written for like a classroom setting, so they have a bunch of partner exercises in there. So I can't really do those, but I also have the workbook to go along. It corresponds with each chapter. In the beginning, I didn't really write in it, but later on I started to write in the book. Some other resources, like as you can see, I have like all these tabs in here for like particular things. So the yellow tab that I have here is related to numbers. So this section is about telling time, more time, and also age, and even bigger numbers. The pink one is for important or vocabulary that I find important. Each chapter starts off with the vocabulary and a short story. I think that's my favorite part about this book is the stories in the beginning. I have a tab for days of the week. And this is where I last left off at. So I haven't finished this book. I'm still working on it, still learning. Yeah. Here are some of the tabs that I use. They're easy to remove and replace, and you can write on them too. I wouldn't write on these though. These look too cool. But these ones, and I even got some different colored ones. I think it's good to use a textbook as your primary source for learning a language as a self-learner, because textbooks usually focus on grammar, sentence structures and patterns, conjugations, exceptions, and all that good jazz. So yeah. I also use this book, Japanese Short Stories for Beginners by Lingo Mastery. They have other books in different languages as well, for any other language learners out there. Check that out. So it has 20 stories in it, and each story is a different chapter. In each chapter, the story is written in Japanese, and then after you read the story, or after the story, there's the story with the English translations. After the translated story, there is a summary that's in Japanese and in English. And lastly, there is a vocabulary list for any new words in the story. And after you're finished reading the story, you can take a little quiz, as each story has a quiz at the end. And I think it's about 5 questions. Yes. And the answers are on the back as well. I find this to be very helpful because the stories include like real life situations and things that you could possibly relate to. And they're interesting. All right, bouncing off from this point with the books that I have, I create flashcards for my textbook and this book as well. For any vocabulary that I'm not familiar with. If I'm familiar with a word, I usually don't make a vocabulary card for it. So here are some of my vocabulary cards. These ones, this particular stack is from my textbook. I color-coded each of the types of words. So all the nouns are written in this orangish color. Verbs, verbs, I have in green. Verbs, I have in blue. And I think that's it for this deck. I didn't really color code for the words in my short stories book. It's just all the same. I find that making flashcards is helpful because even though they have apps for flashcards, I feel like you're more likely to remember something if you write it down and you're really immersed and concentrated on it. I have another book that I just bought recently, Japanese Folk Tales for language learners. Notice how this one says for language learners and this one says for beginners. This one, I'd say, is definitely more challenging than this one right here. The stories in this book are much shorter, and I definitely say that the stories are simpler as well. This book also has almost the same structure as this one, although instead of having the story rewritten and translated, the translation is right next to it. So the stories are broken up into parts and sections, and each part and section is written right next to each other. So you can look at it as you're reading along. After each story, there's also the vocabulary list as well. There's some fun facts and cultural notes in this book, and the vocabulary is also divided by each part rather than having all the vocabulary just combined together. Is broken up by each section of the story. This book also has a lot of kanji in it. This book also has kanji in it, but I feel like it's not overwhelming. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but this is a big boy book. And I'm not quite there yet. I gotta spend some time with it. And I'd also like to finish this book first. I'd also like to share these highlighters with you. So they're erasable highlighters by Pilot. So I have 2 other ones, but I don't know where they are right now. So any words that I'm not familiar with or I'd like to look into later, I highlight it in the book and I can erase it later. So you don't have to feel like, oh no, I shouldn't be writing in my book. It's okay, because I can get you one of these bad boys and you can erase it. All right, I think that's it for books. Let's get into technology. So when I first started learning Japanese, Duolingo only had a few languages, and I think it was the European languages like Spanish, French, Italian, stuff like that. They didn't have Mandarin, Japanese, or Korean at the time, but now they do. So Duolingo is always changing, which I think is cool, but at the same time, I'd like some consistency. Something that I really enjoyed about Duolingo is they had interactive stories. There was a recent update, and I'm not really familiar with the layout, and I think they still have the stories, but I haven't seen them. But I felt like the exercises on Duolingo was more of trying to remember things rather than learning. But they do have like a short little lesson explaining things for you in the beginning, each lesson. It was very redundant. So like you've got this point right here, and let's say you wanted to complete it, you'd have to do it like 8 times, and it'd be like the same things over and over and over. It was so redundant, but I don't think it's that many anymore. Yeah, this one, you only have to do it 5 times. But I do find that Duolingo is helpful, but I wouldn't solely rely on it. I feel like you shouldn't really solely rely on any one particular resource, and I think you should combine your resources to help you learn. But I recommend Duolingo because it's free. It doesn't really have kanji practice, but it does teach you about hiragana and katakana. You get to hear the pronunciations. Yeah. Duolingo. Speaking of hiragana and katakana, I do have another app to recommend. It's called Write It Japanese. So here you can learn hiragana and katakana, you hear the pronunciations, and it allows you to write. I downloaded this on my iPad. I also have an Apple Pencil, but you don't need a pencil. You don't even need an iPad. You can do it on your phone. So in the beginning, it shows you how to write it. Like you trace along. It shows you the strokes, the stroke order, and then after that, you write it on your own. Once you do that, you move on to the next one. And after you complete that lesson, you can test yourself. It has all the hiragana, all the katakana. Another app that I recommend, or that I enjoy, is kanji. That's what it's called, kanji, with the exclamation points. It's broken up into the 5 levels of JLPT, beginner to advanced, and there are so many kanji. So many. So in each lesson, they teach you about 4 4 kanji or 4 ideas. Some of the kanji are related to one another. So they teach you a word, they show you it written out in English, hiragana, and in kanji. They show you how to write it. The stroke order. A little quizzy quiz. And then you have to write it on your own. You can go and look at the kanji that you've learned and reviewed. If it's green, that means you got it down. If it's red, you need to work on it. If it's orange, you're getting better. Another resource that I use to study Japanese is YouTube. YouTube. Cool thing about YouTube is if you have a particular question, you can look it up and find a video explaining it, or you can even subscribe to various channels that teach you about that particular topic. So some of the YouTube channels that I definitely recommend are Japanese Pop 101, Learn Japanese from Zero, Learn Japanese with Tanaka-san, and Ninjapanese. I'm going to put all those in the description because you definitely need to check those out if you're learning Japanese. Oh, I'm not done with apps. Get a Jisho. Get a Jisho. The one that I use, Shirabe Jisho. You can type in a word in English or Japanese. It tells you what it is. If it can be conjugated, it tells you how to do that. It gives you examples and sentences, how to use it, and if there's kanji for it, it shows you how to write it. Shirabe Jisho. I'll be linking all my resources in the description so you can check it out. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Another resource that I use is called Melon. Melon. Melon is a website where you can watch anime for free, and you can watch it with English, Romaji, Hiragana, Katakana, and Japanese subtitles. So Japanese includes kanji, hiragana, and katakana. You can have it just in hiragana, or just in katakana, or just in English, or you can do all of them at the same time. You can do that. I wouldn't recommend that though. Another thing that I do to help me with practicing Japanese is listening to Japanese music. I've actually created a playlist on my YouTube channel that you can find of songs that I listen to or songs that I like in Japanese. I try to include videos that had the lyrics with them, but some of them I couldn't find. But listening to Japanese music or Japanese songs is helpful because you're listening. It helps you listen, and you don't have to understand everything. That's not the goal. The goal is not to understand everything. It is to practice listening and immerse yourself. And then Apple Music has this karaoke mode now. Hold on. Here is my other Japanese playlist on Apple Music, and they got karaoke mode. Karaoke mode doesn't work for every song on Apple Music. I forgot to mention it. But you can still pull up the lyrics and follow along. I feel like listening to Japanese songs while looking at the lyrics is helpful too. It helps your reading abilities. I also notice with the songs that I listen to, I hear certain words over and over again, so now I know those certain words. And I get to see the kanji too. Like natsu and ame. Those are definitely common things that I hear in Japanese music or hear in anime or read in books. I've been studying Japanese on and off for about 6-7 years now, but I've really started to get into it recently. I've set aside more time to focus on it more. So consistently, I've been learning Japanese for about a year now, and I've definitely improved so much with these resources. So definitely check them out if you're learning Japanese. That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and ganbatte ne.